Okay, so good morning to the webinar. Thank you for joining us. Today we would like to have a session on the Smart Agri-Hubs 2 open calls. We published this the last days. And what we want to do today is to shortly introduce what we're talking about. I think this will last some 20-30 minutes, and then to use the opportunity to open, let's say, the floor for your questions, that whatever you have, let's say, in mind, that we possibly can discuss it, whatever question is coming up for you. Yes, I know there are quite some good conditions connected to the call, and some, let's say, as it's quite complex, these are not the only calls we are preparing in the moment. It's a program, more or less, we're working on in Smart Agri-Hubs. There might come up some questions which we can easily solve here. However, there's also a website, there's also a forum where you can ask questions in the web, and where we are also regularly providing answers. So there's also, let's say, the possibility to have, let's say, the chat via the website. Therefore, I just want to go through with you some, I think I saw, let's say, in the registrations, there are some people, I think, which are very familiar to the Smart Agri-Hubs project. However, I would like to shortly start what is really the background, what we are talking about here, and then, so what is the driver of this very open call, these 2 open calls we most recently published. And then, of course, what is the planning, the open calls timing, what are potential topics we're talking about, and then having a Q&A session. Therefore, when, let's say, we have here one famous slide when we are talking about Smart Agri-Hubs, it's about digital innovation in the agri-food chain. It's about, like, when we are looking about decision making, about business, consumers. When we're looking at the overall chain, we have, let's say, analysis, planning, control, sensing, monitoring. It's about, let's say, food integrity. We are talking about public decision making. So there are coming a lot of topics. And finally, when we are talking about digital innovation, it's also a lot about technologies. And as also our colleague Jacques Wolford was formulating this, he was also preparing that slide a little bit some month ago. It's a lot about technologies, about a lot about areas, and all those things are pretty much together. And we need to see this as an overall picture. Therefore, I think the team in behind the Smart Agri-Hubs project, which is quite a large one, is traveling already from many different sources along journey. And also, I was just highlighting, let's say, also for myself, I was putting this slide on. These, for instance, were initiatives where I was personally involved in the last years, where we were also coming more from the research side. We were looking on, let's say, digital innovation in the agri-food chain. Also then, this was the journey together with a fireware initiative, which was also an open source based software initiative born in Europe. And going from innovation via acceleration, I'm also working in the Internet of Food and Farm 2020 project, the IOF project, which is then more on validation there with this more focus on Internet of Things technology. And finally, now we are more in the phase of network expansion. And therefore, when we're talking about Smart Agri-Hubs, it's a 48-month project. So we are now 1.5 years working in these projects together with quite some partners. As you see here, some 168 partners from, let's say, with different profile, different work addressing in the project. And it's funded by the EC, by the European Commission, and with partners from all over the EU. So we have more or less from all member states partners in this project. Also, especially to address this topic of digital innovation in agri-food from different perspectives, from different backgrounds, and where we see that especially for pushing this in Europe, we think also that the digital innovation hubs are a really key regional enabler to do that. Therefore, what we did, so as you see, we have quite a lot of partners with a substantial budget on the one hand, but however, we thought we need also to facilitate the expansion of this network of partners. And as I said, from this budget, we reserved an amount of 6 million euro over the thumb for also future activities. And we are now entering slowly this phase. Also with this open calls, we are taking budget from this reserved money and to support also parties which were not yet involved as full partners in the project. And when I'm talking about digital innovation hubs, so possibly not everybody of you is really so familiar with this, especially let's say when you're not more looking on the SME related call. Just to highlight this, yes, when we're talking about the digital innovation hubs, innovation services, I think this is now an initiative which grew up quite a lot over the last years, also from European Commission side. Also national strategies are more and more evolving, and there we are talking about services with respect to ecosystem, technology, businesses. So I don't want to go into details. If you would like to learn more, on the one hand, we have some information on our website, as you see down on the slides there, as well as also in the S3 platform, the Smart Specialization Strategy. Also there you get more information from. And as well as on our website, we have the our portal with the innovation forum. Also there you have a map where you can find digital innovation hubs already involved. And therefore, what are we doing in the project? Finally, what we want to learn is how such a network of, on the one hand, digital innovation hub, which is rather a regional network of organizations which are supporting all the, let's say, way from farm to fork stakeholders in digital innovation. And there the idea is that they are supporting innovation experiments. So to coach them about, as I said before, ecosystem, technology, finances, and so on. And also learning from this experience, especially in Smart Agri-Hubs, the idea is that the Digital Innovation Hub can also learn what are really feasible concepts, what is the experience which is really, let's say, very positive, what was working not so good, and at the same time, and that's more a topical network of competence centers. Because as we know, when we're talking about digital innovation, we usually have quite some different technologies we're talking about, which are quite necessary. And there, the idea is what we are also doing in the project to provide access to those competence centers, which are very professional in those technologies. On the other hand, also aim at technology transfer, also to provide access to stakeholders which would like to do digital innovation. That's more or less the overall background. And here our idea is to which degree or which support services are really helpful and how can we validate that. That's more or less, let's say, the basic background. And then we were working on the open call also to further learn, to involve additional parties. And therefore, I was putting up this slide highlighting the starting situation for defining the open call characteristics. And more or less what we really learned that we said, well, we should target at the digital innovation hubs as a core element for facilitating all this digital innovation in combination with innovation experiments. That we are supporting a digital innovation hub to support one or more innovation experiments. Therefore, the idea was that from a distribution of budget, possibly 20% needs to be allocated to a digital innovation hub, possibly less, and that specifically this budget can be covered by this open call funding from Smart Agri-Hubs. And as a digital innovation hub's purpose is anyway also to help in innovation experiments to mobilize additional funds from, let's say, European sources, national sources, regional sources, own investments, investors, so whatever. So, and that's also something we want to learn here in the Smart Agri-Hubs project. How can we also combine different sources of funding in, let's say, such a project? So therefore, at the very end, we decided in the project, yes, one Digital Innovation Hub, asking for support, could ask for maximum 100,000 euro funding in total from SmartAgriHubs in one or also several proposals. So selected proposals, say it like that. So this was more or less our starting situation, and we were working quite some time about that. And finally, then there was COVID-19, and well, we were also setting up in our project, as we have quite a lot of partners. We have anyway 28 innovation experiments active in the field, where we were also asking ourselves, well, as a project, we can do now business as usual, which is already something in this period of time with all the challenges we are experiencing in the different countries. However, what additional initiatives we can especially mobilize and look at also to mitigate the crisis? So what from our side, what Smart Agri-Hubs can do to make a difference? So are there possibilities or not? And and are there active measures to mobilize initiatives? And then we also said, well, we can also possibly find some ideas, support ideas for innovation experiments on the medium term. And then we said, well, in the scope of the overall Smart Agri-Hubs open calls, we said, yes, let's put certain budget on realization of a specific call concerning COVID-19, more as a kind of short term. Of course, you could say, no, oh, short term shall be 1 week. Okay, we know it takes some weeks to have a proper selection procedure to prepare this, all that to provide the opportunity to everybody. So it's an open call, open for everybody in Europe and associated countries. So therefore, and this anyway shall be also then combined with later open calls. And I will show you some slides on this in a minute, how this will look in detail. So this was, let's say, this was business as usual. And now we are asking ourselves what Smart Agri-Hubs can also do in the COVID-19 crisis to mitigate the effects. Therefore, the basic idea of the Smart Agri-Hubs open calls in the moment is to have at first a direct response to COVID-19. So these more or less the arrows are just, let's say, to give a logical idea what we are talking about. It's not about the detailed timing. So you will see later slides on the detailed timing, but that's more on the logical idea what we had. So respond immediately. So what can we do now to mitigate the crisis? So then also if the first, let's say, strategies for mitigation were done, so to which degree we can also restart the system. So if we had now all those issues in the crisis we are experiencing in the industry, with the families, with the, let's say, what is with people losing their jobs or whatever, well, I think we are still in the phase where we will still face quite some challenges. Therefore, how to restart this overall system on the medium term. And finally, we must not forget the long-term strategy. Yes, we still want to expand this network because we think, and as we already experienced, like I think possibly most of us are nowadays sitting at home, like myself, I'm sitting in the home office. And that's also something where we think what could really digital innovation also support in the agri-food sector. And therefore, now talking about the first open calls, more or less we launched now, and you find them in the Smart Agri-Hubs website. There you find the detailed information. So the one open call, we called it Respond to COVID-19 for Digital Innovation Hubs. That's an open call for digital innovation hubs to realize hackathon type of activities, like hackathons, datatons, challenges as a kind of competition. So if you think, well, we have quite some talent in our region and we would like to organize such possibly more online events, and we're saying, yes, we would fund this with 100% for non-profit organizations and 70% for, let's say, commercial organizations. That's one part of our open calls in the moment, so the first one. And the second one is we also said, well, We also saw quite some potential when discussing with our innovation experiments inside Smart Agri-Hubs that we think there are some possibilities what also people can implement towards COVID-19. Therefore, we said, well, if there's an SME having a great idea to mitigate effects of the crisis, yes, let's straightforward ask them, please present your idea, pitch your idea, and then this could be funded by 70%. So also there, and possibly you had already a look at the call. One is the first open call for the Digital Innovation Hubs. There we are asking for rather let's say moderate text document, a proposal which shall be prepared that will be evaluated by experts. But for the SMEs, there we want rather to receive a kind of pitch presentation, which we will evaluate in the first step, let's say remotely by the experts, select a subset, let's say where the experts are thinking, well, this might be the best ones. And then we will have an online pitch event where we will have 1-2 days. Let's see how we will plan it in detail to really have the pitches. And then based on this, we will evaluate the proposals and select over the thumb, let's say 10 proposals, as you saw about the available budget and the size of potential projects. So that's the current calls out there. And possibly later on, we will have the time to have some question and answer sessions. Then also to update you on our plans, while when you see these are possibly the priorities for now, possibly they are also relevant, let's say, to future open calls, while yes, those examples, and anyway, we are recording this webinars. You can also have, let's say, have a look at this, but please don't get it wrong. These are the things we are calling for, but these are examples. These are examples where you can have a look. Well, does it cope to my objective? And if you have some very specific ideas where you're not really sure if this might fit, you can also, let's say, put possibly also in our question and answers area for the open call in the Smart Agri-Hubs forum. You can put your questions. Therefore, I think priorities, these are not just for this time. Of course, we think that they are very, let's say, promising for the respond area, but they are always also quite, if we're looking on digital innovation, and as I said in the very beginning, there are anyway technologies, elements, processes, which are also relevant for the medium to long-term digital innovation. And therefore, we do not forget, let's say, that, because in the moment, it's we will finalize the respond open call until the end of the year. So meaning respond as soon as this is finalized. We are coming to the restart and expand open calls. The restart, as I said before, we are thinking, what kind of ideas we could support in the regions, meaning what would digital innovation hubs mobilize in the regions in forms of hackathon type of activities. And there also the idea is to fund 100 to 70% of the costs, while in the restart open call, we are thinking, well, on the one hand, Smart Agri-Hubs will cover funding for those activities, meaning 20%. And this was anyway the basic objective of the Smart Agri-Hubs open call, not just to pay all the cost of such initiatives, but to provide a share of this budget, so with the funding. Then in the expand network, as I said before, it's on supporting innovation experiments. And there, I could now talk quite a long time on this. I think the best would be that you also have a look in our program document, which you can download on the open call website, where also for the, let's say, those open call times, you find already, let's say, further ideas, further description in this direction. And however, as I'm listing here, this is a call for digital innovation hubs to support the realization of innovation experiments. And we also said, yes, if you think that like existing digital innovation hubs and Smart Agri-Hubs could be very helpful, like for knowledge exchange, organizing, let's say, initiatives, then also those could be taken into account. You need to check it. With those, you will find the different digital innovation hubs which are involved in Smart Agri-Hubs already in our forum. And then from internal sources, we would, let's say, put there some funding to those digital innovation hubs. They are also able to support you in your proposal. At the same time, we said if you are able, or if you are anyway mobilizing those and helping those innovation experiments also to develop them from the very scratch, helping the stakeholders to set up such an innovation experiment. We also said, well, then let's also be possible to put funding from Smart Agri-Hubs on the side of the innovation experiments and not just on the digital innovation hub services. These were, let's say, ideas we think, well, this could be helpful, and we are also very much keen on to learn what is the best approach in those open calls. And this, as I said before, also here we will fund a maximum of 20% of the total budget that can be funded. And as I said before, the current open calls, which are open now, which will for the digital innovation hubs and for the SMEs open now, will end in 3rd of June. There, until then, you need to submit your current proposals. Now, looking to the restart and expand open call, they, as we planned, will be opened early July. So that's the current planning. Possibly you don't know what will happen in the next weeks due to our experience with Corona now. Well, let's hope that it will come back a little bit more to normal. If this will be the case, then it will go this direction. And this call is a continuous submission scheme. So this means at possibly monthly, we're planning in the moment, we will have kind of, let's say, dates where we're saying, yes, at that date, we will start with the batch, with the currently submitted batch of proposals we will evaluate. This means every month you can submit proposals, and which are there, we will evaluate. And this we will do until end of July next year. That's the idea in this open call. So if you think, oh yeah, in the moment it's not the appropriate time, you can possibly wait to a later point in time. However, of course, we have a limited budget. We don't have an endless budget. If this is gone, then it's gone. While the selection of proposals, it's not that everybody who sends a proposal in will get the funding. It's rather that we are talking about evaluation criteria, as you can see also in the program document there we identified them, and also proposals need to pass a certain threshold. If they are below thresholds, we cannot fund them. And there we have, let's say, experts, and you also see the procedure where we are asking experts to support us in evaluating the proposals. Of course, they need to sign a conflict of interest, so to avoid all that, to have an independent evaluation of those proposals. So this means we planned in the moment 4 calls. 2 are open, 2 are there to come. However, we also said, well, it's also for us as a project, and it's really a journey, and we need to learn from what is going on and how successful those open calls are, and also which needs are further coming up. And it might be that we are also adding additional open calls, or as I said, it will end up already earlier. So there is a certain flexibility in this also to specifically cope with requirements which are coming up. So this is the current situation. And then I would like to start with a question and answer session. So more or less half an hour gone, that we have at least half an hour. And I think we're not on the minute. If we need some minutes longer or less, then it's no problem with us. However, on this slide, I was already putting some links where you can have additional information. More or less, the first link, that's the link on our website with this news announcement. That's on the public website. More or less, all is public. This you can straightforward look at. Then we have an open call website with the download of the open call documents. This is in the area, in the portal area. There, don't be surprised if you are asked for a login. So as people can also in a forum contribute with content, we also needed people to identify themselves, so to register. So this is very easy. In 2 minutes, you are registered with your email address that you can also edit and add content, and especially also then in the forum. And that's also the third link, question and answers in the Smart Agri-Hubs Innovation Forum. They are regularly, mainly I'm looking, let's say, daily in the forum, and then we are answering your questions also over there. And you can also have a reading there. There are already quite some questions concerning different topics, and I think this is also very helpful if there are some tricky questions, because I know it's not always so easy. And please forgive us for, let's say, that you need to read a little bit, while I think the open call documents itself, the main open call documents, are rather short. You can easily understand what we are searching for, and then there are some readings on the rules of the open call, and that's then more the program document, where we tried also already. This is already kind of question and answers document, where we already added quite some content about what kind of organizations we are talking about, what are eligibility criteria, what is about general conditions. Like yesterday, I think I had an open call, what is about general conditions for contracts. Like the European Commission is asking us to have to sign general contracts, like for dissemination liability or whatever. And of course, we also then had to or will have to put this in contracts with proposers. But this is, well, not really invented by us, like those general conditions. More or less, we are overtaking this from the model contracts from the European Commission. So, and of course, at the very end, if we are doing then contracts, that's rather also about the proposals, because we are not defining the content of work, especially it's proposed also by the teams making the proposal. Then also you will find in the forum and in the portal, you find announcement about webinars, about online events. And of course, there's also a lot of other content, a lot of other, let's say, contributions from quite a lot of individuals. And I think it's really worth it to look at, even a map with organizations which are part of Smart Agri-Hubs, and also of, let's say, a larger stakeholder audience. So I think you have quite some possibility to look there for information. Therefore, thank you very much for listening so far. Therefore, I would like to open the floor for questions. If there are any questions. Lorena, how are you planning to do it now? Shall we open the microphones, or shall we do it via chat? So, of course, you can put it in the chat here.
Yes, I think there are already some questions in the chat. And well, first, I think we should look at that, and then we can unmute all if you want.
Of course, it's always difficult to ask the first question.
Harald, do you see the questions in the chat? Otherwise, I can read them to you if you want.
Questions? Let's wait a minute. It seems that I cannot see the questions in the chat in the moment. Possibly, Lorena, you can help me on that.
Yeah, sure. So I will start with the first one from Marta Stefani. She's asking, are the calls connected? Let me explain. To participate in a call on the restart or expand, must I participate in the call respond?
Well, great. Lorena, possibly you can also read the questions because I cannot
Yes,
hear you in the
I
moment.
already did. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can you please talk again? Because I think due to energy efficiency, my loudspeakers were muted.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and
Okay.
clear.
Okay, so I was just reading the first question, and this came from Marta Stefani, and she's asking if the calls are connected. And she says, let me explain. To participate in a call on the restart or expand, must I participate in the call respond?
No, they're not connected. More or less what we have here, we have in the moment planned 4 open calls, which are not connected. Like in the moment, one call is for digital innovation hubs to organize hackathon type of activities. One is in their region if they want to do a hackathon, a datathon, or a challenge. They can submit a proposal, and at the same time, we are directly asking as a kind of pan-European competition, what we are open now for SMEs, where we are directly asking for some solutions directly from Smart Agri-Hubs, also to, let's say, shorten a little bit the time period for realizing that. And of course, then we will open a little bit later also the restart and expand open calls, which are, let's say, open there for individual initiatives. So there needs not to be um, a relation. If there are relations, possibly there are proposals also later on, collaboration synergies like we're doing in the moment. We have 9 regional clusters in Smart Agri-Hubs. And anyway, we are organizing events, workshops, also nowadays online workshops, where also those regional clusters are collaborating, where innovation experiments are discussing with each other. Also there, of course, we are trying to facilitate synergies. And I think that's also an opportunity, but that's not, let's say, prerequisite to join.
Okay, then the next question, someone is asking, Julia is asking if you will send them the slides.
The slides, yes, we can make the slides available. So Lorena, we will discuss it where to put it, possibly on the website. I think we can also put it there as a download. I think this might be the easiest possibility.
Yes. The next question is from Peter. He says, so in this respond dual approach, you assume automatically that DIHs have knowledge and experience to organize hackathons, while SMEs specialized in virtual facilitation process cannot compete in this respond segment.
Well, a very good question. Thank you very much on this. I think we must not forget why we are doing it. We are doing it because, and we do not want to forget our mission of Smart Agri-Hubs, because of course we can do now something completely different and yeah, just look on hackathons. And yes, I know there are a lot of organizations which are doing hackathons, but however, it's about the mission in the digital innovation hubs, competence center approach. How can we learn from that? Yes, I know there are possibly digital innovation hubs which don't know how to organize it. However, and I think it's also about the strategy. The question is, I'm not saying, oh, exclude everything. I'm saying here on digital, on hackathon type of activities, possibly a digital innovation hub would like to participate in that. And in this scope, they can ask for additional budget. So, and then there are possibly other organizations which are also providing their stake. And what we said, we are supporting the digital innovation hub part of it. And if they are collaborating also with others, okay, I'm fine, nothing against that. And this is anyway, when you are looking at the especially we restart activity, where we are asking digital innovation hubs about this 2080 rule. Yeah, in principle, also this is the idea there, that 20% is specifically covering digital innovation hub related also costs, while there might be quite an amount of additional costs in a project, which is also in relation to other parties doing work, while those costs would not be touched or covered by smart agri-hubs. Therefore, there are possibilities to go in this direction, but we also said, well, we're not just simply looking for hackathons for the sake of hackathons. We are also, let's say, looking in this direction. How can we learn with respect to digital innovation hubs and competence centers also for the future to expand the network?
Okay, thanks, Harald. The next question comes from Stefano, and he says, you mentioned provide data and tools. Can you provide the architecture of the infrastructure?
Who's now you? Shall we provide the architecture and infrastructure? I'm not sure if I understood it correctly.
He just says, can you provide the architecture of the infrastructure?
For the hackathons?
He doesn't say, but maybe he can reply in the chat. So maybe we can take it later.
In the chat, or you can also add it in the forum, and then sometimes it's easier to, let's say, on the one hand, to understand the question and also to properly answer this question, because, well, I think it doesn't bring us if I'm answering something. And well, concerning providing stuff, in the moment we said in those open calls, we are providing finances, and of course, and I think this is also we must not underestimate. It's not just that it's just about the budget in the open calls. You are also very much invited to join our website, to look of what is going on there. And I think there are already quite some activities. There are parties which are supporting digital innovation hubs. There are training, there are webinars in this direction. There's also now a lot of work done for competence centers. Also, there will be tools available. So there is a community which is very active. And also you have a map where you can identify organizations in the regions. And I think it's also about cooperation, synergies, and facilitating that. And it's not just about the open call, to be very clear on that.
Okay, thanks. The next question is from Emmeline, and she's asking, which kind of additional funds can be considered regarding the 2080 rule for Respond? Is self-funding by a DIH considered?
Thank you very much for this question. And exactly, this is especially a challenge we are facing in the Smart AgriHubs project at all, because we are thinking, well, to which degree, if we have research and innovation funds, how can this be combined with other sources of funding? And therefore we said, and there's also in the program document, you will find, I think, there we have a paragraph which is, let's say, giving some examples on that. However, yes, also own funds, own investments are considered in this 80%. And if it's other, even we said other regional funding, other EC funding, regional funding, national funding, also we really want to learn on how we can combine this also as a project. And I think this is also something where the European Commission is thinking, how can we facilitate the collaboration of activities via, let's say, artificial, let's say, don't want to say borders, but I think if we have different activities, how can we do in different programs activities and really have more, let's say, joint initiatives? And therefore, yes, I think what you ask, especially about own investments, yes, that is possible. And there's also some text in the program document in this direction.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Daniele. He says a DIH involved as a subcontractor in two FIEs, having as a shareholder two SmartAgriHubs partner, can participate. Is it in a conflict of interest situation?
Well, this is one of the very special questions, I must say, and I'm tending not to say yes or no, because there are now so many, let's say, conditions in this sentence where I must say possibly yes, possibly no. I think to go a little bit back, what do we want to achieve? We want to expand the network. This means at first, if we have beneficiaries in the project, we cannot allow beneficiaries, so the list on the in the partners of our contract, that they are now going for the open call. This would mean we would give the open call money to ourselves. So this was not the objective, and this must not be. We said yes, as there are a lot of stakeholders, and we have a lot of stakeholders in the Smart Agri-Hubs consortium. Well, not even in the consortium, but let's say in the larger, wider area, where what did we say? We added them as a kind of subcontractors with let's say small amounts of budget to travel basic costs, and then we said yes, those third parties which have a sub-grant or were involved somehow as a third party would be able to join also in the open calls. While if now, especially where I said I need to step back of answering your question, if you are saying, oh yeah, they are shareholders, then it's getting very tricky and complex in those things. I think that's a very special case then, because when we are talking then about parties and linked parties, all this, let's say, rules and conditions in EC open calls, requires then quite some checks if this is possible or not. I think that's a very special case which I cannot just easily answer by yes or no.
Okay, thanks, Harald. The next question comes from Bugra from Technolera Venture Lab in Istanbul. So here goes the message. We are developing Turkey's first online acceleration program for agri-tech startups that includes Ideathon, Academy, and mentorship. Can we also submit our proposal to this open call?
So did I understand it correct? So they are having an acceleration program, and for what they would now like to submit a proposal as a digital innovation hub, as a solution, as a digital innovation hub.
They don't say they are digital innovation hub. They just say they are the first online acceleration program.
Okay. So I assume you are asking for the COVID. Let's go back to the slide to have this overview here for the current open calls. Exactly. I assume you're asking now for the Digital Innovation Hubs open call, so the first one. If you think that you are a digital innovation hub in terms of the definition we were putting there, and you want to go in this direction for digital innovation, well, in principle, why not? Because for us, we said, and I answered this now several times also in the forum, for us, it's not so important that you were undergoing already a long certification or procedure formally stating, yes, I'm a digital innovation hub, I have my certificate at the wall, and well, it's great. It's rather about what's your objective. I presented, therefore, this slide with the Digital Innovation Hubs related services. If you are doing this and you want to offer those services and you want to join the network of Digital Innovation Hubs, because it's a role, and we also highlighted this in the program document, it's not to have a legal entity which is registered as Digital Innovation Hubs. It's rather a role of an organization. And in this role, I'm providing those services. And if you are saying yes, well, anyway, we are doing similar things, and we didn't thought about that role as a digital innovation hub, and we would like also to join this network of digital innovation hubs. And we think that this amount of digital innovation hubs, and there are way more than 100 digital innovation hubs. There are now 140. Let's say we are usually, that's a floating number, however, but for 140, we already identified in SmartAgriHubs, as you see on our website, 140 digital innovation hubs, and you think, well, that's quite a number, and this offers collaboration potential. Then, well, why not to say yes? Let's join this network of digital innovation hubs, and you could possibly overtake also this role. If you are saying, oh, I'm an organization, I'm doing something completely different, can I join? Then I would say no. So it's as simple as it is. It depends on what is the strategy in behind. And then we also said in the open call document, we would really like to ask proposers for the digital innovation hubs related call to make a self-assessment. So there we have also colleagues which worked on a self-assessment also to help to understand what are you offering. And it's not so much about the certification process. It's much more also to learn, well, what I'm doing, what I can improve, also others, help others to learn what are you offering, also what the colleagues are working on, to which degree we can also have peer reviews. It's rather of how can digital innovation hubs collaborate. And I think this is something also to encourage the community to collaborate and create synergies. I hope that this is somehow answering your question.
Okay, thanks, Harald. Another question is, do you have to work directly with the DIH in order to apply for the SMEs grant?
No. This is not a, let's say, prerequisite that the digital innovation hub needs to do this, needs to do this or that. We are there. That's a challenge competition. And our idea was, what can we do for COVID-19 as a very immediate activities? I think digital innovation hubs can be very supportive because they are very, let's say, in the regions, they know the ecosystem, they have, on the one hand, regional contacts, but also international contacts. And I think they can be very helpful and supportive. And like also the competence centers. So therefore, the question is possibly, it might also be very interesting to collaborate with some competence centers, especially when you're addressing a certain technology. But what we said here, it's about, there are possibly teams and SMEs which really have a great idea to mitigate the consequences of the COVID-19 crisis in the agri-food economy. Therefore, we want to support as immediate action. We did not plan that. I definitely say it. We did not plan that before COVID-19. Not at all. We just worked the last weeks to organize this challenge. So this was not in our plans before. We also discussed this a lot with the European Commission. They also, we had to ask them, especially concerning our contract, and all the calls were also there, reviewed by the European Commission and the Research Executive Agency. And we added this call especially to do something and really to have an immediate action and really to motivate people to from such an initiative, because I think we have a large reach out. I think we can bring a lot of people together. And I think it's not about, I would not rather ask about, need I to collaborate with this or that? There's an opportunity to collaborate. And I think we have a lot of people. And also when I'm looking at the number just of partner organizations in Smart Agri-Hubs, we have now nearly 170 or more partner organizations. So I think we put down the slide 168 with a lot of people. and a lot of talent. And I think if you have questions, there is an opportunity to collaborate. I would see it rather like that.
Okay, thanks, Harald. The next question is from Vincent from Agri-Farm Lab, FIE number 6 in Cluster France. He is asking, in which extent is it possible for an already existing FIE like there to apply for this second open call in a view of continuing the FIE and improving it?
Well, to say very clearly, at first hand, we are not making the open call to add funding to existing innovation experiments. So that's the first message I would like to send. We have innovation experiments with substantial budget, and so they are there. What we want to do, and that's a basic strategic objective in Smart Agri-Hubs, that we want to help additional innovation experiments, and especially in the expand open call there, our, let's say, key performance indicator from the very beginning was to add some additional 70 innovation experiments. So this was our basic objective from the very beginning of the project. And therefore, if partners from an existing innovation experiments, possibly also associated partners more or less from the larger end user area, say, oh yeah, we really learned now something in this innovation experiment, and we would like to start some new ones and learn also in other directions. So there might be possibilities, but existing innovation experiments saying, oh yeah, well, we achieved this objective and now we just want to top it up with additional budget to do more, well, that's not the purpose of the open call.
Okay, thanks. Another question from a question from Christina. She's asking if you could explain in more detail how they can involve other stakeholders in the open call COVID-19, for example, DIHs and other local associations or SMEs.
Short answer, just do it. The long answer now. Well, it is, you can imagine when we are organizing such open calls, addressing quite number of organizations, also for us and also our colleagues at the coordinating organization, quite a challenge to do all the contracting and so on. So therefore, when we are now talking about the response to COVID-19 for DIH, yes, also there we said, well, possibly there's not so much required, but especially also for the expand open call later on, especially there, we are asking also for a kind of consortia of digital innovation hubs, larger teams. But however, what we are telling there is that Smart Agri-Hubs will contract with one coordinating organization, and they shall manage then, let's say, those costs and more or less the consortia which are realizing then, especially let's say in the later open calls, such sub projects. That's more or less the idea, to have a kind of steps that Smart Agri-Hubs contracts the coordinating organization, and then more or less it's organized by them. Of course, this is even a longer answer. We could start on all the detailed organization, but at the very end, the coordinating organization and then the DIH shall really then file all the budget, and as we said there, also the 2080 rule. It's also then, especially in innovation experiments, therefore anyway that they are not funded, they need not to have a contract. That's more than about those organizations which will also receive then funding. They need to be identified. So therefore, let's say I see this specifically valid for the, let's say, expand open call mainly, I would say.
Okay, thanks, Harold. The next question is from Costin. He's from Romania. He says, I'm a digital innovation hub in Romania, but not a Smart Agri-Hubs member. May I participate?
Yeah. So nothing what I heard would indicate that you should not. You are very much invited to join the open calls. So if you're Digital Innovation Hubs, if you did not join yet SmartAgriHubs, we would very much welcome you to join us. So very happy to see your proposal. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you. Then we have a question from Sylvia, and she says she received a question from a company building satellites, and she would like to reverse it to you. So do you see any possible application they would be interested in joining the project or applying to the call?
She's asking me for ideas. Is this correct?
Well, if it's interesting, a company building satellites for the project or to apply to this call.
Yeah, that's. I think that is. First, thank you very much for the question. On the other hand, I think it's very difficult to answer such a question because as it's always with enabling technology, like on my slide with the competence centers, we have a lot of enabling technologies. If it's artificial intelligence, IoT, blockchain, satellites, I think satellites could offer a lot of potentials. Personally, I would say I could have ideas which I see might provide an added value. Yes, and as I find this topic anyway interesting because I'm from an organization where also some shareholders of us are building satellites, by the way, and therefore, let's say that's not such an unknown topic for me. But however, I could imagine that there might be potentials, but I think what is very important, it's not about solution is searching for problem. I think you would be very welcome if you could realize a solution. And if you have people with a demand, with a need, because what we really want to make sure that those, especially in the SME open call, that not just ideas or solutions are submitted where the people don't know who could apply it, but that you already have identified a need where to apply the solution, and then saying, oh yeah, and then SmartAgriHubs would be an opportunity to help me realizing that, and possibly already having some end users where you could provide such a solution to. I think that is very important. And then, of course, I see a lot of potentials of many technologies. Well, I think the challenge lays in the details. Sorry for not being able to give possibly a better answer, but thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Harald. We still have many questions. So one from Julia, she's asking that she doesn't see any e-form on the SmartAgriHubs portal. Do they have to fill in out a specific form for the open call response?
In the open call documents, we added a template for proposals. That's it for the first 2 open calls. And we would have an open call management system. It's anyway in preparation, and it will be there for the restart and the expand open calls. And as you can imagine, we reacted. Now we try to be as fast as possible now. After discussing this in our COVID-19 task force, we said, okay, let's do something now. And then we said, okay, let's receive the proposals via email. Let's receive them as PDF. This was the decision, just to be straightforward and not to even spend time now on adjusting the open call management system, which will be for the next open calls, will be available via the web, where you can fill then also stuff via forms in this. But we said, okay, straightforward. This will add, of course, a little bit more efforts to us in managing all the, let's say, received proposals. But we said, okay, let's try to avoid too much overhead effort on that. I hope that this answers the question, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Harald. Another question. This comes from Daniel, and he says, regarding potential partners for entities that want to submit a proposal, do you do matchmaking in case we approach you with a concept?
So thank you very much for the question. And This is something, if you have their questions, yes, please also contact us there. And we are also trying to support you there. We cannot promise that we find the appropriate, let's say, partner there for you, but we have different communication channels anyway in the project. At first hand, I would also like to put your attention on the portal, where we also have a website with a map and listing all the partners there. Even yourself, you can identify potential partners in this. But then also, you can also contact us for further inquiries, and there we can try to support you.
Okay, thank you. Daniela is asking, when are the Restart and Expand call going to be launched? Before summer, after summer in 2021?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm just changing my slides. So here, as I said, that's the respond. This shall more or less start latest in July with the implementation. And now the restart and expand. And this is the current timing. Well, it's not yet, I cannot sign it's carved in stone. There might be changes. We all don't know what will happen in the next weeks. Do we have a second wave of Corona? Will be there additional lockdowns? Like in the moment in Germany, it feels like, oh, everything is fine again. I'm a little bit surprised about that. However, possibly we will make holiday all over Europe nowadays, but we all don't know what will happen. Therefore, that's in the moment the current planning. And as I said before, it's a continuous submission scheme. So this means the open call will close in July 21, so in 1 year. And until then, it shall be opened. And in the moment, we're discussing in batches per month, but we will also learn how many proposals will come. If the number is lower, larger, then we also will discuss, shall we update that? But the moment it is planned, it will be open somewhere in July, and then people can submit a proposal earlier or later, as you like, as you're available. And as we said, proposals need to pass a certain threshold according to the evaluation criteria, which are already listed in the program document. The program document represents the latest status. There might be even additional calls, so there might be changes. There might be, let's say, the money away already in the end of the year or earlier. So many things could happen where we also want to learn from that, but that's in the moment the plan.
Okay, thank you, Harald. The next question comes from Avi, and she says, could you explain a bit more the evaluation procedure on the SmartAgriHubs to SMEs open call?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Well, at first hand, please have a look at the open call document. There we explain the procedure. So more or less step by step, we said proposers shall submit a pitch presentation. We even identified the different slides. We said, what do we expect? Then we identified what aspects of those slides will be evaluated. So there will be experts identified according to the program document about they need to sign that they don't have a conflict of interest, and so on and so on. And then, as we said in the first step, the experts will evaluate the submitted proposals in an offline procedure. Based on this evaluation, there will be more or less a shortlisting or a ranking of proposals. And from those rankings, we will select a meaningful number. We identified, I think there are 30, 35, a little bit depending also, we now assign to those both open calls 900K euro. And also we assigned this to the different calls. We identified potential size of projects, especially for the SME open call. We said probably projects in the range of 30 to 50K might work, because we think with this amount of money, you can do already quite something on a short term. And then there will be, for those 30, 35 teams, there will be online pitches. So the jury, so you will have a pitch online with a jury of 3 experts, and of course with the organizer to moderate all that. And then from those, we are more or less over the thumb, depending then on the size of the proposed project. But in the moment, we said 10 projects will be selected, and those shall then start in July. So that's more or less the procedure, but I think I did not explain something additionally which is not standing in the open call document.
Okay, thank you, Harold. A question from someone from Georgia. She's asking if non-EU member countries are able to join Smart Agri-Hubs.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. More or less there, we are following the general rules of the European Commission. It's about EU member state and associated countries. And there's the classical list. And I think even in the program document, there's possibly the link to, I think we added this link to the European Commission guidelines on that. More or less, we are just applying the basic Commission rules on that.
Okay, thank you. Then a question, at which scale hackathon type activities are expected? Regional, national, international?
Well, I think it shall make sense. We did not say it shall be this or that size. And there was already such a question in the portal, which I answered. It could be a regional initiative. And we were also discussing with some of our partners in Smart Agri-Hubs. It's the Farm Hack colleagues, which were also supporting us in the preparation of all the work towards the open call. And they also prepared a do-it-yourself hackathon kit. This is also available via the portal. I think that's also a very nice thing. And it's also what is the purpose of such a hackathon, a datathon? And I think there are diverse purposes you can address with this. I think it shall make sense. And when you're saying, yes, we have here a regional initiative, if you're saying it's a national initiative, well, it's not just about numbers. If it's just about having 10,000 people sitting at their screens and say, oh yeah, it was a great day, and then that's it, well, then the question is, what is the impact? And I think it's also very important if we have a consortium of already now 160 partners, possibly in the future 200, 300, 400, and a reach out of even more partners. I think it's also very important that we learn and how we can share this experience. And I think this is something we shall have in our mind. Therefore, I think it would be very difficult. It shall be this or that size. I think the concept shall make sense. And what do you think? How this could make a difference? And especially if we can have initiatives in certain regions and bring people together. And I think especially on hackathons, datatons. And I remember we had also there was a datathon in a hackathon in Wageningen last year, where especially also they were bringing together machine manufacturers, so data providers, say it like that, and people with really a lot of ideas, students, SMEs, and I think that's also very helpful. Just this matchmaking and experience exchange. Therefore, I think for me, it's very difficult to say that's the optimal size. It's not just about number, it's really about impact.
Okay, thanks, Harold. A question from Roland. He's asking if this co-funding could come from outside the EU.
We take money from everywhere, don't worry. So don't worry. And this was also when we did previous project, and I was on one slide, I was also presenting initiatives and open calls we were doing before. One thing we need to take into account, if we are planning to transfer money outside the EU and outside the associated countries, then it's a little bit problematic on a policy term. And it's not as easy. If I have now a team in China or in the US, you all know that it's not easy with EC money to do that. for a certain reason, of course, because we want to support the European Union with innovation and research. Of course, if there are teams which are, let's say, also adding their efforts, if I have some African partners, for instance, and I'm also, I was managing an accelerator in the FIWARE times, where I had teams which were very active also with Africa, especially in the food chain. And of course, also there were in those projects efforts more or less added from partners in Africa. So I think also that's, let's say, investments which we shall take into account. Only when you are planning to, let's say, if you would be a partner not from the EU or not from an associated country, which shall be directly funded by SmartAgriHubs, then we would have a problem. So I hope that this answers your question.
Okay, thanks, Harold. A question from Rita. Should the DIH be formally approved as such from any authority to be eligible?
So if I understood correctly, you are asking if there needs to be a kind of qualification or certification that you are really a digital innovation hub already.
Yes.
We did not put this requirement because what do we want? Especially when we are looking here in the expand phase, we want to expand. We would like to enable organizations that they are joining us. Possibly they are not yet really active as digital innovation hub. And if we want to expand with only digital innovation hubs, which are already there, I think this would be, for me, at least not logical. I think it's logical that we are opening the doors and saying, yes, you want to work as a digital innovation hub? Here is an opportunity. Use it. Therefore, you need not, and there we have a clear, in the portal, in the forum, I already answered this question, and also in the program, there are, let's say, more or less definitions in this direction. We are not asking for a formal certification or a qualification from an organization. What we are asking for is also now for the digital innovation hubs that you are making self-assessment, that we also know what are you offering, that you also, let's say, get, let's say, ideas, oh, where can I possibly add additional services or not? Because it's not about a full-fledged whatever service portfolio. It's about possibly you also will have certain strategies on which services you would like to offer and possibly which not. And that's not about everything or nothing. It's a journey to be a digital innovation hub. And we would also like to support this journey in SmartAgriHubs and to learn how can people be facilitated to go on this journey. Therefore, also during the realization then of those projects, also our colleagues will come to the digital innovation hubs, supporting them with a peer review. And that's not this, that's really for improvement. That's really looking, where am I, where can I be, how can I collaborate, how can we help each other, how can we exchange experience. I hope that this will answer your question.
Okay, thank you. Viorel is asking if there is any limit for the number of topics covered by a hackathon.
Thank you very much for the question. Well, in SmartAgriHubs, we are looking for, of course, in the restart, in the in the respond open call, we are also looking for the COVID-19. Then, of course, the shell has a relation to COVID-19 mitigation. While generally, of course, we are looking at proposals or topics in relation to the agri-food economy. So if you're now saying, oh yeah, I have the great proposal how to install tires at a car in a very new way, or I don't know what, well, this would not be topic of SmartAgriHubs because we are here looking for agri-food economy or those related business domains and sectors.
Okay, thanks, Harold. This is a quite a long question from Marian. She's saying that the section 2.2 of the program document, eligible proposers, states that proposer must not be a direct beneficiary of the grant agreement and then the number, This is of the SmartAgriHubs project. And then the question is, a DIH that is a direct beneficiary of the SmartAgriHubs project could apply to respond open call and to restart?
If I understood correctly, the question was,
if a DIH that is a direct beneficiary of SmartAgriHubs already, could they apply to respond open call and to restart?
No. Period. Direct beneficiaries cannot apply to open calls of SmartAgriHubs.
Okay.
What
Thanks.
I said, one thing, what I want to highlight, and therefore we also added this. Yeah, I think here you on this slide you see it, because what we still wanted to enable collaboration also between digital innovation hubs that they can learn. Therefore, if you look here on the expand the network planned open call, our current planning is that existing digital innovation hubs, which are already beneficiaries in the project, that they can also support proposed projects. That if there's a consortium wanting to propose a project saying, oh yeah, I would like to collaborate with this or that digital innovation hub because they have quite already some experience in this area and I would also like to learn from them. Of course, they will have efforts for this collaboration. Then we said with a maximum funding of 10% requested in the proposal, we would then internally support the digital innovation hub. That is in the moment the plan. But this would be then coordinated by Article 4, Paragraph 2 of the grant agreement of SmartAgriHubs, if I'm not wrong. So that's concerning the article, but that's more or less the idea. But therefore, the digital innovation hub, the internal beneficiary, would not be a member of the proposal, to be clear here.
Okay, thanks, Harald. Another question from Viorel. He is saying, what kind of final results are expecting from Respond to SmartAgriHubs proposed solutions? KPIs, deliverables, stages of solution, implementation, etc.
What kind of results?
Final results, yes.
Yes, we were shortly outlining this in the, I think it was also on the program document. When we are talking about this stuff, it shall be, as I said before, there shall be solutions which are really needed. And especially for the SMEs, it must not be just a slideware, to be clear on that. Well, slideware for 50,000 euro, I think, would be a little bit too expensive. These shall be solutions. Of course, we need to remain realistic, and we also know that solutions, if they are starting to get more complex, I think then would also possibly require more budget. However, we think, and we have also quite some past experience on that, what is possible with this amount of money, and it shall be already kind of at least minimum viable product, or let's say some iterations of minimum viable products where possibly not all features are yet already fully implemented, but that the solution can be already applied by an end user. I think that is very important. Is there a solution where an end user is saying, yeah, oh, possibly not yet all features what I would like to have, but there are features which are now helping me. I think if we are going in this direction, and everything else, we could possibly have now sessions of hours discussing all that about demo, tests, product, whatever types, and about the maturity levels, resilience, whatsoever. I think it's specifically about the needs of the end users, and if they're saying yes, that's something I really was searching for. I think if this is possible, well, would be excellent.
Okay, thanks, Harald. Another question from Marian. She's asking if a CC could be a proposer in the Respond open call, a competence center.
In the Respond, does she say for what?
No.
Well, if so, is CC, we're not searching for CCs. However, as I said before, digital innovation hubs and CCs are rather roles. Usually there's an organization in behind. So now I'm stepping back saying I'm not talking about the role as CC. I'm rather talking about the organization. So now talking about the call for SMEs, if the CC is realized by an SME and you have a great idea on implementing something, send a proposal if you are not yet direct beneficiary in the project. If you think, well, we think the role as CC, it's one part of our activities, but at the same time, you are also offering services which are rather digital innovation hub activities. So if you're offering DIH services, possibly you are also kind of digital innovation hub. As I said, these are roles. And please also look in the program document. There we also have some text in this, exactly in this direction. Because I think also, well, you could also have both roles, at least from my personal perspective. And you can change your heads and say, yes, in this role, I'm supporting that team in this way. And in this role, I'm supporting that team in that with those other services. And then possibly you are also eligible for the, let's say, DIH call. Therefore, but of course, if I'm calling for a digital innovation hub call, I'm not calling for competence centers. So that's more or less. I hope that this answers your question.
Yes, thanks, Harald. Then Daniela is coming back to the question before with some clarifications. So the calls restart and expand, will they stay open for a year? When will the evaluation happen? After 31st of July 2021?
Thank you very much for this open call. Well, I will repeat this again. Changing the slide here. Exactly. What I said, it's a continuous submission scheme. This means when we're opening the call in July this year, so in, let's say, 2 months, something like that. Please don't nail me down on the specific date yet. And then, as I said, in the moment we are planning possibly to have batch evaluations monthly. This means every month we will evaluate proposals, and then if they are over a threshold, they can get funding. This is planned like that in the moment. This might change, as I'm also indicating, but that's in the moment planned. This means if you are submitting a proposal in July, you could possibly, if it's then evaluated in August, then possibly in September you could already start. So that's in the moment the situation. And meaning the final possibility to hand in a proposal would mean in end of July next year. That's the current planning. And as we said, however, if we got already too many proposals, if all the funding is gone, we have a limited funding. It's not endless. If this is away, it's away. But as I said, it's continuous, and it's not just that if we are getting a list of proposals that we are just shortlisting them and then we're just distributing the money. No, it's rather about all the proposals need to be above a threshold that it makes sense to support such proposals.
Okay, thanks, Harald. Just for you to know, we have still 2 questions left and 1 clarification, but there are also many thank you messages that I'm not reading. They're coming quite a lot. So a clarification from Roland from the co-funding question before. He says money will stay in the EU and spent by EU partners, but the product comes from the US.
The
Okay.
product comes from the US.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not very sure about. However, I think in principle we discuss it in this direction. I think we need to be a little bit. Yeah, it might be tricky about in which detail we are talking about what. Therefore, I think it's always difficult to answer such questions. But
Yeah,
in principle,
maybe
it's
Roland can go back to the forum and formulate the full or integral question.
yeah, it's like if I have an innovation experiment, like if I'm now buying a tractor or an implement from the US, and I'm making some innovation, an innovation experiment in this direction, and I'm investing quite significant amount of money in this technology, in the product, and well, yes, or also effort from that, we can account this on the 80%. If this is raised for the realization of the innovation experiment in Europe, we cannot fund a partner which is then coming from the US and funding that. So there are certain rules which are a little bit overlapping there. It's a little bit sensitive, and therefore yes, no answers are a little bit difficult. But I think it looks to me also that this question is possibly answered.
Okay, thanks, Harald. So one of the last question is, how will the evaluators be selected?
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. More or less, we anyway make a call for evaluators, and also based on their, let's say, qualification towards ICT and Agri. And anyway, there are also, let's say, we are also asking evaluators from lists we have already from previous projects in these domains. And we will also especially ask in also other consortia, and also if you know people also here where you can also communicate that they can also share with us their interest that they would like to join us. So.
Okay, a question from Daniel. He missed the start of the webinar, but he is asking about the size expectation of the hackathon. Is it a 50, 100 people event, 100, 500 people event, or 500 plus?
As I said, it's not about numbers, it's about impact and what's the strategy in behind. Therefore, I would rather say a hackathon with 50,000 people can be useless, and possibly one with 20 genius. So I think just talking about numbers is always a little bit difficult.
Okay, thank
Sorry
you.
for not being more explicit.
I was maybe in a hurry when I said there were two last questions because people are still writing their questions. So another question from Jorge. He's saying, is it possible to give a real example of the budget of a proposal and the correspondent funding from the SmartAgriHubs open call, for example, in the case of a non-profit organization?
We started more or less with this in the Annex 6.1 in the program document for mainly for the expand open call, but this might be something I will think about that we can, yeah, possibly add this. This might be helpful. I think we will also check this. Where how we can present that, because we started with this, and you find an example in Annex 6.1 or Annex 1 of the program document, so section 6.1 of this document. There we prepared already a table with those related costs, and however, it might be helpful, that is true, if we have an explicit example on the budget tables. True.
Okay, thank you. Then Marta is coming back from one of the questions earlier at the beginning. So she doesn't, so she's just wanted to make sure that she understands correctly. For the respond call, is the hackathon approach the only accepted approach, or is it a virtuous example?
Thank you very much for the question. Concerning therefore we are calling for hackathon type of activities, meaning we are calling for hackathons. At least in the moment we call for hackathons, datatons, or challenges. We also gave some explanations in one annex of our program document, what we understand under those topics. If you have a very specific idea, either you can ask us in the forum, in the question and answer section over there, when you think, oh yeah, I would really like to change it. Or of course, if you think it's really very confidential, possibly you can use, let's say, the email address of the project to send this question. But more or less, we want to have this hackathon type of activities, especially in the respond open call for DIH, as a type of open call. And especially in the expand open call, there we are looking then towards the innovation experiments.
Okay, thank you, Harald. And I think this is actually the last question in the chat. It comes from George from Romania. He says, how do you decide the status if an organization is a digital innovation hub?
Well, at first hand, the proposers decide. Are you thinking you are a digital innovation hub? And as we said in the call and in the program document, you shall explain what you are offering and what are you planning to offer and what is your strategy? Why are you doing that? That's part of your proposal. You shall say, why are you doing it? It's not up to us to say you are a digital innovation hub or not. If you believe you have a thorough strategy, you want to achieve something, and you can create impact, we are very happy to receive your proposal. And I think that's very important. It's about your motivation, and it's not rather on, well, whatever curious certification scheme. At first hand, you need to be motivated. Then we will ask you, yes, to make a self-assessment, also for learning what are you doing and what are you offering, and also how others can learn from you, and so on and so on. But at first hand, you are explaining in your proposal what is your strategy, and of course you're also saying, yes, and these are the services I'm offering as a digital innovation hub. And then, of course, the evaluators will look at the strategies, and they are evaluating and assessing the strategies which are proposed. And if they don't see services which are expected from a digital innovation hub, well, then they say, oh, yeah, the services are very poor. That's not really a digital innovation hub services. Then possibly the proposal will not be rated very well. But it's not about that I'm telling you or somebody else is telling you you are a digital innovation hub. At first, and you need to be convinced you are a digital innovation hub and you want to create impact. I think that's the first prerequisite to start at all the proposal. And then, of course, you are explaining your strategy, what you want to achieve, how you want to reach out to the community, and of course, then you are also defining your deliverables. There were also some questions before which are answered. What's about the contract? Of course, the proposals. We are not making a call for tender where we are very specifically identify you need to deliver this, and that deliverable. You are also defining your deliverables. You are saying what you want to achieve. And of course, we are making a contract where we are putting those KPIs in the contract. And if you don't deliver, you don't get the funding. It is as simple as it is. It's based on results, not on effort sheets. It's about you're delivering or you're not delivering. If you're not delivering, well, then nothing can be reimbursed, to be very clear on that.
Okay, thank you, Harald. Last minute question from Daniel. Is there a time frame when these events need to be run? For example, does the event have to take place in a month's time or 3 months' time, etc.?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I'm going back to the slide. As you see here, for the respond open call, we identified this schedule, meaning that we are aiming at a start of projects in beginning of July. And those shall be realized, those activities, either by digital innovation hubs or SMEs, or let's say more the solution implementation shall be finalized, let's say early December, so that we are done with this before Christmas. So that's in the moment the plan for the respond open call. And because if this would last longer, then it's not anymore a response to the COVID-19 crisis. And hopefully then things are already cooled down a lot. And that's the plan for the Respond Open Call.
Okay, thank you, Harold. And that's it from our side. No more questions.
Okay. So thank you very much for putting in the questions, and I hope that I could answer them. And I know possibly some answers were not as detailed, or possibly not 100% answering your question, because, well, it's sometimes a little bit difficult if I don't know the overall story, especially if you're asking with respect to a very specific organization, very specific situations. Then I need to be a little bit careful to say a yes or no, because then possibly some situations I cannot assess. Therefore, if you have additional questions, please use the forum to put in your questions, and we are more or less daily answering those questions, and also trying there to provide you further links to the documents we have, and which you can download anyway in the portal of SmartAgriHubs. So therefore, we're still with 50 participants. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that we can move something together with this open call. I would be really happy that we can, let's say, join forces. I think also in SmartAgriHubs, as you also saw on the slides, we have a lot of partners which are really having diverse strategies and a lot of competencies we have here in the team. And I think this is also an opportunity to really even, let's say, push use this network for collaboration. I think this is also very important, and I would be happy to welcome you on this travel with us. And of course, you're also invited besides the open calls. If you're saying, well, anyway, open call is not yet even necessary, you're also invited to join us in the portal, in events and webinars and so on, and to join our work and collaborate with the partners also besides all those open calls, and as all, let's say, the resources in the portal, in the innovation forum, are anyway public, and you can join us anyway there. Okay, then thank you very much, Lorena. Thank you very much for facilitating the overall call. This was very helpful. Thank you. And
My pleasure.
then I would like to wish you all a very good day, and all the best for you and your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Goodbye.
Thank you, Harold. Bye.
Thank you.